AM 1380, The Biz, the Wall Street Business Network.
Are you one of the 9 million Floridians living in a community managed by a property manager or HOA? If you've ever wondered what your rights are as a resident or what your role is as a volunteer board member, you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Condo Coaches, your resource for when your gated community starts to feel more like you're stuck behind bars, or when that guy next door decides that a hot pink Chevy on cinder blocks really sets the tone for the neighborhood. The Condo Coaches is brought to you by lmfunding.com. Find the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. And now your host, Johnny Torres.
Hello once again. Thank you, everybody, for listening. The Condo Coaches radio show, anywhere and everywhere you want to listen. Facebook, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, and, of course, at thecondocoaches.com. That's thecondocoaches.com, our website. You can download all the past episodes. You can watch all the past episodes. We love making the show available to you. And then, of course, we've got a new premium download that's going to be absolutely free for you to download. We'll get into that in a little bit. But first, let's go around the table and do some introductions. With me, as always, head coach Dean Akers. How you doing, Dean?
Johnny, doing great. Again, another crazy, fun week. It just amazes me how much more this is catching on and how many of our coaches we've got. You know, Scott, today, we're getting more and more real professionals coming in to help these condominium associations. What
we're now calling the Condo Coaches Network is ever growing and quickly, I might add, and that's incredible. So we can adequately service the entire state of Florida in whatever issue you may be dealing with as you sit on the board of directors for your community or homeowners association. And for those of you watching or listening for the first time, again, the Condo Coaches, we are a team of volunteers here who want to share their expertise, be an educational and informational resource for board members and residents who live under a condominium or homeowners association. And our mission is very simple. It's to get associations to run effectively, efficiently, and on budget. And so one of the newest members to our Condo Coaches Network is Scott Wilcox. Hi, Scott.
Johnny, how are you today?
Doing great. Thanks so much for joining us. A little quick bio on you for those watching and listening. Scott joins us as a kind of disaster planning expert, and he's got 7 years as a high-rise condo. Now, CAM, break down that acronym for me.
CAM, it means Community Association Manager.
Perfect. All right. So it's 7 years as a high-rise condo community association manager, 4 years as an RV resort manager, 4 years in property maintenance, and 2 years as an insurance adjuster working in the restoration industry. And for those of you throughout the state of Florida who may find this incredibly important, he is a Gator fan.
Absolutely, all day long. It's in my blood. I can't help it.
So thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
And like we always love to do in the first segment of the show, we like to talk about some of the people that we've heard from this week, some of the people that the Condo Coaches have met with, and the situations that are happening throughout the state on the board of directors for these condominium and homeowners associations. Dean, who is our first example of the day?
Well, we had a really cool call this week, a group out of the Southeast Florida area.
Okay.
We're going down there. We're actually going to take the Facebook Live down there on Monday, February 13th.
Okay.
And I'll share with that. They called, and I haven't even talked to you about it, but we're going to go down there. There's 22 associations, and they called up wanting coaching for a 1.5 hour event that we'll be involved with all our condo coaches. And they've picked topics for us to come down and help these 22 associations in this one group.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, that's that right there. I mean, that's a lot of breakfast and coffee you're going to be buying.
Yeah, but you know, quite frankly, we because of our supporters and stuff, and not sponsors, but just our kind of supporters, were able to do this type of stuff.
Yeah.
And we're going to have a little lunch for everybody, but they invited us down, and they gave us all their criteria that they need, and we've got coaches set up. They're excited. By the way, we've sent all the flyers. We've done all the graphics, and this group is so excited about this right now. They said they haven't had any interaction like this ever, and they've been trying to do these things.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, and again, for those watching and listening, we'll do this, whether it's one association or, like you said, 22 associations, which is unbelievable. All you've got to do is reach out to us either by phone number to our Condo Coaches Network. 813-331-5415 is the phone number. 813-331-5415 is the phone number for the Condo Coaches. You can email us, help@thecondocoaches.com. That's help@thecondocoaches.com. Our email address, also a very easy and effective way to reach us. And, of course, our website, thecondocoaches.com, thecondocoaches.com. We have a few places there where you can submit your information. You can submit questions for us to answer on the air, or maybe an issue that you might need help with. And one of our condo coaches is going to get back to you in a timely manner, and we can start the process to help you and your association.
Okay, would you let the viewers, let our listeners know, we're getting a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Most of them are in the legal side. So we have a whole slew of Condo Coaches lawyers.
Right.
I'm actually keeping them pretty busy. One sent me a response back this weekend, said it might be a week before I can get back to this because I have hearings and stuff.
Sure.
Just know that if you send it in, we're going to follow up.
Perfect. All right. So,
and if it's 911, like if something like the place is on fire and they need it that day, just tell me.
Or call 911.
Or call 911, yeah. And then call Scott.
And then I'll be there for you.
Exactly. So, all right. And we'll get to one of our questions that have been submitted for us to answer here on our show. This is coming to us from Thomas, and he's over in Melbourne. He says, we have a situation here with the owner of the amenities. They currently wrote a new DOR. What's a DOR?
That's the one my attorney said that she's got all the answers.
Okay.
And we're going to help him. I'm going to reach out to him today on his phone.
All right. And so apparently they're trying to push through this new DOR, and he wants to discuss it with someone. And so, of course, we've reached out to Thomas, and we're going to start the process to help him through that. But go ahead and give us a little bit of background on that.
I had not seen the term DOR. My attorney's going to tell me it's probably something really obvious.
Yeah.
But what comes out of that conversation, which we've had some others reach out, is these amenity ownership groups. There's condominium associations that actually have a contract with an amenity ownership group that did not turn that over. So they own the clubhouse, They own the pool.
Yeah, I'd never heard of that either. I didn't know that was a thing.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
And so it's not tied to the same thing as the condominium documentations. Point is, it's like having a contract with a vendor.
Right.
Almost like you're leasing the clubhouse. Is that how it works? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, well, they manage it, and they keep it up and all that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see kind of how that might make sense for some communities.
Well, it makes sense. Let me say this. This week was a big week, again, for communications. This is a perfect example. The boards that call me are mad at the amenities because they think the amenities people just jam them. And that's kind of what our listener said.
Sure.
And so we're going in and doing financial analysis, showing them that, hey, the cost per person, you couldn't run your own pools for this.
Right.
And so it's all about communication. It's about getting a condo coach to come in and deep dive it and validate it for you.
Right. Well, and again, whether you're having organizational issues, communication issues, legal issues, even construction-related issues, the condo coaches are here to help. We've got somebody in just about any and every field you can think of that are volunteering on the Condo Coaches Network, and they will go out there at absolutely no charge and help you and your homeowners association or condo association get through some of these issues.
Yeah.
One of the things that I mentioned at the top of the segment was our free download. Yeah. The one that we've already printed thousands of is the top 10 things you need to know if you are a board member on a condominium or homeowners association. That one you can still download immediately on our website right now if you sign up. The other one going live this week is going to be on collections, which we've done a show on. And it's collecting delinquent COA and HOA fees, which is never a comfortable subject. Obviously, it's not a fun position to be in, but it's very prevalent in just about any community. And it's one of the things that, again, is one of the strong suits of the Condo Coaches, and one of the things that we can certainly help you on. And so that's going to be the download that is going to be put up on the website by this weekend, which is when the show airs. And you'll be able to download that at thecondocoaches.com. So we'll have 2 booklets up there. There'll be a third one soon. We're getting one of these up every month, and all you've got to do is go to our website, tell us who you are, and you get the download absolutely free at thecondocoaches.com. So again, we've got Scott Wilcox with us, and Scott, we went through your bio a little bit, and so of course your focus and your expertise lies in disaster planning and emergency planning. And so one of the things that we're going to talk about is, of course, how to prepare, right, for when these disasters come up, when these emergency situations come up, and the ones that are expected and the ones that are unexpected, right?
Absolutely. We can always plan for, hurricanes. We see that coming. It's the big, massive beast in the Gulf of Mexico coming our way. But it's the unexpected things, the little day-to-day aggravations and headaches that we don't think about and that we don't plan for, that can really cause a lot of problems for a condominium association.
Now, looking at your bio, you've been on both sides of the table. You've been on the property management side, the property maintenance side. You've been on the community association management side. Really, where do you find, the disconnect sometimes between, both sides of that equation?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the disconnects happen maybe take, for example, a board of directors. Mm-hmm. You have a lot of people on a board who are volunteering. They're not necessarily experts. And the big disconnect is, what do you do when things happen? And thinking about the unexpected things that could happen. We do sit down with our insurance agents. We talk about risk management. We sit down with our lawyers and we talk about what to do with collecting delinquent accounts, but we don't think about, what happens when a refrigerator line's been dripping for 4 weeks. Yeah. And that last little drip just lets loose. Now you have 10 units with severe mold and water damage problems. Right. It's those kind of things that we need to talk about and have board of directors to create plans for.
All right, well, we're going to get into all that again. Scott Wilcox, disaster and emergency planner, our guest coach for today's show, and of course, Dean Akers, head coach. It's the Condo Coaches radio show, 813-331-5415, 813-331-5415, or check us out online. And if you're watching us on Facebook, say hello, facebook.com/the Condo Coaches. We'll be back in just a bit. Go ahead, subscribe now, iTunes, the Condo Coaches. We'll be back after this.
Contact the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. More of the Condo Coaches is coming up next.
Wow, yeah, since the storm, it's been crazy busy for us. We got all kinds of office desks coming in. Here's a fancy one right here. It's missing a leg, but that's all right. Whatever. Washers and dryers from a laundromat. Oh, wow, and check this out. Another deep fryer. And I'm not sure what this doohickey is. Yeah, most businesses weren't ready for a storm like that, but our work's really piling up here at Roberts & Son Salvage.
What will become of your business after a disaster? Nearly 2/3 of businesses aren't prepared for an emergency, and 40% of businesses that experience a disaster never recover. Make an emergency plan now, before it's too late. For a free online tool that helps you develop an emergency plan to keep your business up and running should disaster strike, visit ready.gov/business. Brought to you by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, the American Red Cross, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Condo Coaches, online at thecondocoaches.com. Here's your host, Johnny Torres.
Thank you so much again for watching and listening. The Condo Coaches radio show. Today we're talking disaster and emergency planning. And whether you live in a single-family home community, a condominium community, trust me, it applies, and you absolutely want to be taking some notes during today's show. With us, as always, head coach Dean Akers, and our guest coach for today, an emergency and disaster planner, Scott Wilcox. Thanks for being here, Scott.
Thank you, Johnny. Good to be here.
So again, let me just run down your, I actually just closed it out. I had your resume open here. And so you've got, again, about, let's say, 20 years at least in experience in property management, community association management, even at the resort level, the RV resort level. So that's also pretty interesting. I'm sure you got plenty of stories.
They've got problems too.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to start off from the beginning, right? How does one plan for an emergency or a disaster situation? Because like you said at the end of the last segment, it's easy to prepare for a hurricane, right? You throw up the shutters, you bring in all the furniture, you make those kind of preparations as much as possible for a natural disaster that may be coming. How do you prepare for the unexpected disasters?
Well, I'm glad you touched on that. FEMA and all the government agencies, they have a plan. You can go to many different websites, and they're all very similar, very comprehensive. What do you do when? But we want to get down with the property managers and the board of directors and ask, what do you do when the little things happen? Who do you call when a fire breaks out, when you have a mold, when the fire sprinkler lets loose in a condominium unit? So we really go through and we customize, we go to the properties and we create customized, proactive disaster preparedness programs. I know it's a lot to swallow, but every community is different. Every attitude and thought process of a board of directors is different. So we go in and we ask a lot of questions, kind of do an interview of the property and say, what are you going to do if this happens? Where are we going to park if we need to come here at 2 o'clock in the morning? And really go down a list of a checklist per se and say, what's your plan when this happens? A lot of condominium associations say, I really haven't thought about that. And so we kind of get people thinking. So it's asking questions. What are you going to do when this happens? Who are you going to call when this happens?
Well, we had a show recently where we talked about the insurance side of emergencies and disasters. And so this is actually the more kind of logistics behind it.
Correct.
And so when we're talking about, give us a list, because I don't think, we get so caught up in the lingo. I don't think people always truly understand what, aside from natural disasters, tornadoes, hurricanes, sinkholes, that sort of thing, what are some of the more common type of disasters that you see in condo communities and single-family home communities?
Well, the three most common are, number one, the largest loss in the insurance industry is water. I mentioned earlier I remember at the condominium I managed, we had this lady, she had a new refrigerator installed. Everyone, took care of business, delivered the refrigerator, installed the ice maker line, and they left. Well, the ice maker line was dripping for about almost 4 weeks and ultimately affected 10 units. Major problem, major disaster. Now you have 10 individual unit owners involved in some sort of chaos. What's the plan for that? Another issue is with water comes mold. Mold has potential for some very serious side effects. If you have mold in the air conditioner, mold in the air, you have some people who are coughing a lot. What's your plan? Who are you going to call? And the other one that we don't think about because it's not as it doesn't happen as frequently as water, but we do have fire issues that happen as well. So what are you going to do when there's a fire? Yes, we're going to call 911. The fire department's going to come. They come with their axes and they break down the door. They take care of the immediate problem. But what about the aftermath? What about all the soot that's all over the place? What about the water? What about the damage? What are you going to do? And how do you control those costs? When you have a serious property damage issue, how do you control what's going on? Is this, we always kind of ask the question, is this particular situation, is that a $500 situation? Is that a $5,000 situation? How do you as a manager and a board of directors know? So we also kind of talk about that as well, is how can you control cost in the restoration industry?
We had a question along this line.
Okay.
And it's almost a legal question, so we might have to go to a lawyer sometime, but he may have an answer.
Sure.
One of the biggest challenges in condominiums is the demarc, or the who owns what in the disaster.
Right.
So
because again, everything from the wall out is up to the individual owners, and the walls themselves, or everything between the walls, is the communities, right? The associations?
No, everything in the walls is the property from what they call the paint in.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so the rest of it's the condominium association. So that's one of the big issues, and we had a question on it where there was an instance something happened in a unit affected other units, and but it affected it through the
dividing walls.
The dividing walls of the guy that
Sure.
caused it.
And so who's responsible?
Yeah, who's responsible? So if a board of directors has a contingency or some kind of deal, how do they handle with the individual units? Do you guys just triage? Does your industry, because this is an industry question, does it triage in, get everybody taken care of, and then figure out how to get paid?
Yeah, a lot of things that happen in the industry are you come in, you deal with the emergency. You have the water issue, things need to be dried out. The question always comes up, who is paying for this? Well, I'm not paying for that. It's not my responsibility. I didn't cause the leak. One of the biggest things that we hear when our technicians are out. So we do work with the management company. We do listen to the board. We go so far as to, well, let me have a copy of your documents. Sometimes a lawyer does need to be involved. In the state of Florida, there are universal 17 statutes, but the documents sometimes do say, hey, you're responsible for this, we're responsible for that. So industry, we kind of have to look at everything on a case-by-case basis because every property damage situation is very unique. And I'm glad you brought that up. And part of our program that we do is the very last page of our program is we go in and actually sit down with the board of directors, read their documents, and we create as part of the plan who is responsible for what. Right.
And that's one of the things we always emphasize here on our show, and we do so every few shows, which is that there is typically an underestimation of the importance of knowing what is in your documents. And again, we had an attorney here who specializes in insurance claims. It's part of, again, what your industry does and what you do. Is it also documenting that damage for those insurance claims?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we have what's called the before, during, and after approach. And what you just mentioned, we put everything online. So if you have an issue, all the pictures, all the journal notes, everything that happens, we put it online so all interested parties are involved. And I think more restoration companies kind of need to get involved in that and part of that proactive approach, because when there's a property damage, it's not just the homeowner that's involved. It's the insurance carrier, it's the insurance adjuster, it's the insurance agent, it's the property manager, it's the board of directors. If you have common elements involved, there's a lot of hands.
Right, there's so many parties involved.
Correct.
And we got a little bit ahead of ourselves in terms of kind of the outline that we'd set. So to kind of bring it back in terms of preparation, you talked about water damage, you talked about fire damage, and so what are some of the ways that that a homeowner can be prepared to address those issues when they do come about? Because I would say for the most part, it's a matter of when, really. I mean, it's not
Correct.
a matter of if.
If you're in a condominium, it really is a matter of when.
Right.
And it's about having a plan. It's about working with your property manager or your property management company and having a comprehensive plan in place. You have to be able to go in and ask a lot of questions, look at all the nuances of your living conditions, your building, your association, and know how to respond and where to respond, where to direct people. So it all really starts with knowing your property and knowing your manager, because their manager is probably the first person to call after 911, and get a plan on paper and communicate that plan to all the community residents.
Well, and as we mentioned earlier, Scott is one of the newest members of our Condo Coaches network. And one of the things that we do, again, as we do with all the fields that we cover, if you need somebody to come and do a emergency and disaster preparedness assessment, we'd be more than happy to do that for you on behalf of the Condo Coaches at no charge to you. All you got to do is reach out to us. If you want to give us a call and schedule that, you can do so at 813-331-5415. That's 813-331-5415. Email us as well. I mean, that works for a lot of people. We're all very busy these days, and sometimes email is the best way to communicate. You can email us at help@thecondocoaches.com, help@thecondocoaches.com, and of course our website, thecondocoaches.com. Definitely a few forms there for you to fill out, and we will absolutely respond to you in a timely manner. All you got to do is reach out to us, and we'll make sure that we get you on your way to that assessment. And again, today we're talking disaster and emergency preparedness. We've handled insurance issues, legal issues, financial issues, organizational issues, and so the Condo Coaches are here to help, and we can help in just about any area that you're needing some help in. In the next segment, we're going to talk about what to do during a disaster, whether it's natural or whether it's unexpected. But Scott Wilcox is our guest coach for today. Again, an expert in disaster and emergency planning and management. And of course, with us as always, head coach Dean Akers. It's the Condo Coaches radio show. Again, you can find us just about anywhere. Subscribe to us, like us, share our stuff at facebook.com/the Condo Coaches. Look us up on YouTube, iTunes, SoundCloud, The Condo Coaches. We'll be back in just a few minutes. It's the Condo Coaches radio show, streaming live every Monday at 1 o'clock on facebook.com/The Condo Coaches. We'll be back in just a bit.
Contact the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. More of the Condo Coaches is coming up next.
My name is Ruth Rusey. I'm a retired teacher. I'm 91 years old, and this is how I live united. I say retired, but not really. Once a week, I read books to children as part of United Way's education program. Reading to a child creates links between language and literacy. It creates a bond between grown-up and child. And believe it or not, it prepares them for a better academic future. Oh, we read about frogs and flies and pigs with wings, all sorts of juicy stuff. It's a joy to watch all those little faces. I figure I have the time and they have the need. And I've always believed that if we're not here to help each other, then what are we here for really? My name is Ruth Rusey. I help kids prepare to succeed in school. So I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
Give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Go to liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Condo Coaches, online at thecondocoaches.com. Here's your host, Johnny Torres.
And streaming online at facebook.com/The Condo Coaches, where you can send us your questions, comments on the show, watch us live, or just watch us on demand. One of the great things is that we are taking questions and comments during the show, and we'll actually get to one of those in the next segment. But we are fortunate to have a guest with us today, Scott Wilcox, emergency and disaster planning expert. He is also now part of the Condo Coaches Network. And with us, as always, head coach Dean Akers, enjoying a Packers playoff win over the weekend. Is that right?
Yeah, my father-in-law's from Green Bay, so.
Well, you got to play ball with the with the father-in-law, right?
Yeah, I'm a Bucks fan or a Green Bay fan, depending on if the Bucks were there, I'd be a Bucks fan.
Depending on if the father-in-law's in town,
right?
So, all right. Well, we're talking about emergencies and disasters. In our last segment, we talked about planning for one. Now we're talking about during, and this is again where things are a little crazy, right? Because whether it's a hurricane or whether it's a kitchen fire or whether it's some sort of water leak that's happening in your home, you're never quite ready for it. And certainly when they are not natural disasters, when it is something like a home fire or a water intrusion, those are obviously the ones that are the hardest to be prepared for. Tell us what to do when we find ourselves in those situations. I'll even share a personal story here in a little bit, but tell us what should the homeowner do? Again, fire breaks out in the kitchen, or the toilet starts leaking all over the place. What's the first thing they should do?
Well, obviously, if you have a major thing like a fire, 911.
Yeah.
Always get the fire department involved first. Don't try and do it alone. Always bring in the professionals to come in and help you, such as the fire department. Then from there on, it's that word chaos. Everything that you just described is just chaos. And managers, we like to use that word organized chaos. And I always kind of ask during the process, well, why does it have to be chaos? If you have a good, solid plan, the response and how people respond can be very organized, and it doesn't have to be chaotic. So, one of the things that we find in the restoration industry is be transparent. If you want to reduce chaos in your community, in your personal space, be transparent with your customers. That's the biggest thing. And as a condo owner,
and by your customers, you're saying your residents, right? Your fellow absolutely. Neighbors, and
demand it. You need to demand transparency, right. And the providers need to be transparent. And that's really going to take the chaos level down. After the fire department leaves, you have dripping water and soot everywhere. What do you do next? And that's the whole process there, is be transparent and it'll really help out.
Now, we talked about planning for these types of situations in the previous segment, and one of the things I meant to ask, and when we touched on this a little bit in our insurance show when it came to disaster claims and that sort of thing, but do you see there being maybe in some cases where insurance companies give incentives for disaster and emergency planning, or do you find that just helps make things smoother in case something happens?
We have found that some carriers, and I don't have a list of who, so the boards are going to have to ask their agents about this, but if a condominium or association has a comprehensive disaster plan in place, some carriers do offer a discount off the premium.
Excellent.
And so you have to talk to your agent about that, but it is out there, yes.
And so when you guys come in, right, in the aftermath, in terms of, really what makes the difference between somebody that was prepared for such an event and somebody that wasn't? I mean, really, is there a difference in kind of what you see, when you first get there and how much damage is taking place?
We always defined that the communities that have a plan and want to work with us on creating a plan, the response time is much faster. The response time is much more organized. If you're working with a company and you have a pre-plan in place, the restoration company is going to know where to go, know where to park, how to respond, know what elevator to go to, what security procedures they need what hoops they need to jump through as far as security goes. And so they know up front, hey, ABC condominium, we know all about ABC condominium. We have a plan in place for them. Let's go and respond. And it's likewise on the other side. If a condominium has a place, response time is going to be much more efficient, cleaner, neater, and less chaotic.
Yeah, because in some cases I see where I'll drive by a community and you see that they have an exit/entrance for emergency vehicles, and there's like a chain and lock on it, and I'm thinking, that's probably not a good idea.
Yeah.
And so do they look into factors like that when making these plans?
We look at every single factor. What are these? Part of the questionnaire that we ask is, what are the security procedures? Where do you need us to be when something happens? 3 o'clock in the afternoon is much easier than 3 o'clock in the morning. So at 3 o'clock in the morning, how do you want us to respond? Is a restoration company going to have the code to get into the gate? Do we have to sit there and wait? What are the factors that go into that? So it's all about reducing chaos and being transparent on both sides.
All right. So we've called the fire department. We unfortunately got this situation happening, in a unit or maybe in the community. And so let's say that particular situation has been resolved, right? So the fire has been put out, that sort of thing. What happens? What needs to happen immediately after that?
Dealing with a fire or the water has to be taken care of immediately. Water will, if it happens on a fifth floor, water and gravity don't mix, and water wants to get out of there and fall down to the fourth floor and fall down to the third floor and so on and so forth. So water is the first thing you have to take care of.
Now, is that something that, because again, let's say I do live on a fifth floor and I have, a water intrusion issue. And do I start pushing it out the front door? Do I, what do I do in the meantime while the service provider, somebody that does this type of restoration type of work, show up?
Great question. If you have pooled and puddled water and you can get rid of it, by all means, push it out the front door, get it out the balcony. The longer the water sits, the more damage is going to occur. So if you have the means to get rid of some of those big puddles in your home, go ahead and do it. We'll come in, help with the carpet, the walls, and
that's regardless of flooring, and that's regardless of what the interior of the home looks like.
My recommendation is, if you have a means to shop vac it or someone help you kind of get rid of some of the standing water, go ahead and do that. There is an exception though. We have what's called classifications of water. So class 1 is clean water out of the sink. Class 2 is maybe the toilet with some not solids in it, just some dirty toilet water, maybe some urine in it. That's a class 2. And then you have a class 3, which is sewage, things that can really seriously injure you. If you're ever in a class 3 situation, do not touch it. Do not get involved in it. So there are things to consider there also.
Clear the area.
Get out of there. If you have a major sewage backup, you just do not need to be involved. So dealing with water from a sink or a faucet versus a fire hose is significantly different than dealing with the toilet backing up and flooding your home.
Sure. Well, and it becomes a health hazard.
Exactly.
In addition to just a physical hazard.
Yeah. So there are times where, you go ahead and get your furniture up off the floor, get rid of those puddles, and then there are times where you need to turn around and leave and let the professionals take care of it.
Gotcha. Okay. And then in the case of a fire, fire happens, fire department shows up, they put everything out. Now what do I do?
Yeah, well, so then call us. The manager's obviously going to be involved. Maybe there's not an on-site manager. Maybe the board president's going to be involved. So in the plan, there needs to be communication as to who gets called what and when and how and who, and all those questions are kind of be answered in the upfront planning.
Right.
So the community knows that, okay, a fire just happened. The manager needs to be called. Your restoration provider needs to be called, and the response needs to happen. So as far as, say, a fire happens and there's water there, it's kind of hard to assess, depending on how smoky water, soot-filled water is going to create more of a mess.
Yeah.
So that's going to have to be assessed differently than, say, the dishwasher overflows.
Right.
So you kind of have to look at what's in the water, if you will.
Well, and Dean, in this type of situation, right? So let's say that the community was at least diligent in starting the process for an emergency or disaster plan. It seems like it would benefit them to have a community-wide meeting where everybody can come to get on the same page as to what that process is, right?
Yeah, and that's part of our whole communication thing.
Right.
In the next segment, I was going to mention it, but it's perfect timing here.
Mm-hmm.
35% of the communities in the state of Florida, the roughly 50,000 communities, 35% of them are self-managed.
Wow.
The question you just got a minute ago was from a self-managed, I promise you, self-managed 6 units.
Right.
So one of the things that Condo Coaches has really been doing over the last 6 weeks, I would say the biggest bulk of our questions are coming from small self-managed communities, under 30 units, 20 units, 6 units. And so I'm going to ask Scott to maybe put together a generic outline of a plan that we could put on the Condo Coach thing, that a 6-unit one could sit around and have a beer, if you will, and say, are we here, here, and here?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times they don't have this manager that they can go, hey, whatever happened, it's the board of directors is half of the residents.
Sure, right.
Yeah, absolutely. We have that. We have approaches and plans for 400 units versus 3 or 4 units. So
is there a vast difference between how you prepare, whether you're a small community or a large community?
No, in the sense of having a plan is a plan, and it's a good plan because fires, anything can happen to any size community. What changes is how detailed it is.
Okay.
A 400 unit condominium community is going to be much more detail oriented than a duplexes. 3 or 4 duplexes. So
right.
The plan is always the same, but the nuances are different.
Well, again, now that Scott is a member of the Condo Coaches Network, we want to go ahead and make sure that you are prepared for any upcoming natural disasters or otherwise, or emergency situations. And the Condo Coaches would be more than happy to help your board of association board of directors of your association, prepare your community for these types of situations. And so we'll do that free of charge. All you got to do is reach out to us on our website, thecondocoaches.com. That's thecondocoaches.com. You can also call us 813-331-5415. That's 813-331-5415. Or you can email us if you're watching us at work, which you shouldn't be. You should be actually working. But you can always watch us on Facebook or YouTube. But you can also email us, help@thecondocoaches.com. That's help@thecondocoaches.com. We'll come out. We'll do an assessment. We'll also help you get your emergency or disaster plan in place. I mean, that's an incredible value. And again, your board of directors are a group of volunteers, and so are the Condo Coaches. And so keep that in mind. We are here to help you and your board of directors be successful in this endeavor. And why anyone volunteers to do all this crazy work is beyond me, but we do it out of love and the willingness to want to help your community. Also, don't forget, you can download the top 10 things you need to know if you are sitting on the board of directors for your community or homeowners association right now. It's a free download if you sign up at thecondocoaches.com. That's thecondocoaches.com. Final segment coming up in just a bit.
Contact the Condo Coaches online at thecondocoaches.com. More of the Condo Coaches is coming up next.
When Dad needed help getting around, I became his driver. Any daughter would do the same. But soon enough, he needed help doing more things, and it was up to me to be his personal shopper and financial manager, too. And before I knew it, Dad moved in with me. So I became his cook, his personal assistant, his physical therapist, and even his nurse. When I started taking care of Dad, I didn't realize all the roles I'd have to play. But no matter what, I know I'm still his daughter.
We understand the many roles you play. And to help, we created an online caregiving resource center. At aarp.org/caregiving, you can find resources and connect with the caregiving community. Together, we can better care for ourselves and the ones we love. Visit aarp.org/caregiving to learn more. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Condo Coaches, online at thecondocoaches.com. Here's your host, Johnny Torres.
Thanks again for listening, watching the Condo Coaches radio show, facebook.com/the Condo Coaches, where we broadcast live every week. Also, you can catch our show not only on Facebook, but you can also watch us on YouTube. Just search the Condo Coaches. Also, SoundCloud and iTunes have our podcast. So if you have quite the commute, I'll tell you, this show is a great companion on your daily commute. You can download it now at SoundCloud or subscribe to us on iTunes, and all you got to do is search for the Condo Coaches. Today, we're talking disaster and emergency planning, along with Coach Dean Akers, who's always with us, is Scott Wilcox, our guest coach for today, and brand new member of the Condo Coaches Network. Just to recap, Scott has been a community association manager for 7 years in a high-rise condo, 4 years as an RV resort manager, 4 years in property maintenance, and 2 years as an insurance adjuster working in the restoration industry, which is why we are talking about disasters and emergencies. So we talked about how to plan for them. We've talked about, obviously, what to do during, a disaster or an emergency, what to do in those immediate moments. Of course, going back a couple episodes, you also want to make sure that you reach out to your insurance agent, your attorney, if you have one, and get those guys involved as soon as possible. And now we're going to talk about post-disaster. So everything's kind of settled down, and you're starting to kind of just gather yourself, and it's never fun, regardless of how big or how small these incidents happen, whether it's a kitchen fire or whether it's a hurricane or a tornado. But there comes a time where everything finally settles down and you're able to truly take a look at what's happened. And so, of course, aside from the emotional aspects of going through something like that, what else should the residents and board of directors be cognizant of, be aware of in terms of what needs to be done?
I'm glad you asked that. I wanted to mention this in the last segment. No matter what happens and how you respond during an emergency, you always want to be safe. I think safety is number one. So you have to always kind of assess the situation, talk with your manager, talk with your neighbors, talk with the first responders there, and make sure that you are in a safe situation. We talked about dirty water, but safety is number one. And as far as afterwards goes, everything, if you have a great company, if you have a great plan, you have a great response team, it goes smooth. The chaos is greatly reduced, and things are pretty good up until the bill arrives, up until you start talking about money and insurance, and then you start asking those questions. But I didn't think that, and I wasn't thinking this was going to be this much.
And lawyers get involved.
And lawyers get involved,
Sure.
and then it starts getting ugly again, and the chaos ramps up again. But having a comprehensive plan, it all really just comes back to planning. If you are working with a restoration company and you have a plan in place that's so comprehensive to even know what you're going to get in advance as far as cost goes, that's really very, very, very helpful in the restoration industry.
Well, and again, you being in that industry, is there a pretty big difference or stark difference into the how these situations are handled if you were called let's say, because again, it's one of those things that you don't think of calling a restoration company until you absolutely need one, right? But since we are talking about planning for these sort of things, do you see a stark contrast between the people who call you once something has already happened, or the people who've called you in advance and done some preparation for these types of situations?
Absolutely. It is almost night and day versus, dealing with people who have a plan, dealing with people who do not have a plan. People who do not have a plan, you're scrambling on your Google phone because the hot water tank has exploded. Who do I call? Who do I call? Because you're in an emergent situation. Your wife is yelling at you. What's going on? The house is all wet. You don't know. You don't know who's coming to your house. You're scrolling down. You're finding the first 2 or 3 companies on Google, and you just want the first person to be there. And you have no idea who's walking into your home. If you're part of an association that has a plan and your emergency responders have been vetted, then you can have some confidence that things are going to go well, be done right, that the problems will be resolved, they can come back and fix things and do things the right and correct way. So there's a big difference between, having a plan and not having a plan as far as that goes.
And again, what are some of the things that you've seen in your experience, right? And you've had experience on the restoration side, on the community management side, and on the property maintenance side. So you've seen it from all angles. What are some of the things that you've seen that residents have done to either help or hamper the process after a disaster has occurred?
Well, I'll use one of my best stories, or I should say one of the stories I remember the most was I'm going back to that refrigerator story. New refrigerator was installed, the ice maker line was installed properly, and just a tiny little drip for almost 4 weeks caused an incredible amount of damage for 10 units. And I was probably dealing with, because I had 10 different homeowners, and I probably was dealing with 3 or 4 different restoration companies. And it was very surprising to me, when the restoration companies came in, who was bringing in chaos to the table and who was being very professional up front. And it really just came down to, what we talked about earlier is being transparent with the client and really communicating up front with the customer. This is what we're going to do. Even having a game plan, walking in the door. This is what we're going to do. This is what's most important. Okay, you have hardwood floors, you have laminate floors, kind of assessing the situation and communicating with the homeowner and the association as to what's going to be the action plan, if you will. So that really kind of distinguishes who's who and what's what. So that's been my biggest experience is really comes down to planning and communication during the incident.
Yeah, well, Dean loves talking about communication, and so much of this really boils down to that. But again, if you'd like to prepare your community for a disaster or an emergency situation, the Condo Coaches would be more than happy to come out and help you with that. We'll do a free assessment. We'll help you develop your emergency plan, and all you need to do is reach out to us. Let us know that you're out there and that you need some help, and you can do that by calling us, 813-331-5415. 813-331-5415, or our email address, help@thecondocoaches.com, help@thecondocoaches.com, or of course our website, where you can read our blog posts, you can watch all our videos, and of course you can reach out to us there. Contact us by going to our website, thecondocoaches.com. That's thecondocoaches.com. So again, Scott Wilcox has been with us today, and we're talking disaster and emergency planning. And I wanted to bring up this example because it's not every day that, you get to bring some personal experience into the Condo Coaches radio show. But over the weekend, my sister, kind of FaceTimes me out of the blue, and she, usually does that. But this was kind of particularly late at night. It was, I think, after 11 or so. And sure enough, I can see her because, now with FaceTiming, I'm able to see that look on her face that something wasn't right. So I was just waiting for the bad news. Turns out she had left something on the stove. I think it was some oil that she was going to fry some dinner, and walked away. And my 2-year-old niece distracted her, needed to go to the restroom, and so she went and was helping her with that. Before you knew it, she had completely forgotten about the fact that she had left something on the stove at a high temperature. Sure enough, that oil caught on fire and started to basically melt down the appliances there, the stove, the microwave, and start to burn the things around it. Luckily, they were able to put it out before even the fire department showed up. But when you talk about insurance claims, which we had in a show before, in of course, in that situation, you just want to get it resolved, right?
Just call somebody and take care of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so again, do you recommend that they not touch it and let a restoration company or somebody come and document everything first, or should they document it? And that if it's not serious enough to where they need to call a restoration company, what do you suggest?
Well, I always document. I'm glad you mentioned that. Documentation is just such a lifesaver when it comes to dealing with the adjusters and your carrier. And just pictures, and more pictures. As far as handling the situation, make sure that first and foremost, all safety things are taken care of. All your safety concerns are dealt with. You have to look at your own personal space and say, is this livable? Can I stay here right now? Do I need to go to a motel for the night? So those are all questions a family has to ask themselves. Mm-hmm. But yes, absolutely. What you just mentioned, photo document everything, and call a restoration company. A good, reputable restoration company works with your insurance and your insurance carrier, and likewise. And insurance carriers and insurance agents typically know who the reputable restoration companies are.
Okay. Now, we did get a question on Facebook, and we only got a minute left, so I'm going to hit you with a quick question here, Dean. Community doesn't have money to fix the stairways in their community, and they're worried about them being liable for anything that might happen due to these stairways not being safe. Are the residents liable in that kind of a situation if the community's not upkeeping the stairways?
That's a question for a lawyer, but as a condo coach that's done a lot of helping over the last 25 years in businesses, when there's a situation and you're aboard of a place that has that situation, once you better deal with it.
All right.
And we'll get that answered from one of our attorneys so it's official.
Got it. Georgia, thank you so much for your question on Facebook. And again, you can find us there and just about everywhere else at The Condo Coaches. It's been the Condo Coaches radio show at thecondocoaches.com. Thanks so much. See you next time.
You've been listening to The Condo Coaches, brought to you by lmfunding.com. Find us online at thecondocoaches.com and join us this same time next week as we help you navigate life in your managed community.